and welcome to the Cottage Talk post-match show. I'm Russ Goldman. Joining me right now is Max Cohen in the lower secret square, and in the right-hand square is my friend Claire Parrish, who has not been with us for a long time. I want to welcome Claire back. Claire, I'm going to go to you first. Welcome back to Cottage Talk. I look forward to talking to you about this 0-0 draw. How are you doing?
Hi, Ross. Thanks for inviting me. I'm glad I saw your text this time. I know I missed one a few weeks ago from you, and I was like, damn it. No, I'm good. I'm good. Thanks myself. And yeah, as a Fulham supporter, I'm feeling pretty at the moment. So all is well.
Okay, very good. All right. Max, I'm going to go to you first. I want to get Mad Max's opening thoughts on this 0-0 draw. We had full time, and again, I thought Emilio and I had a very good discussion on it. It's been over 24 hours since then. Max, what's your opening thoughts on what happened yesterday?
Yeah, first off, just good to have Claire on the show. It's always nice to have.
It's great to have Claire on the show.
A new host, so welcome. I think, we've become a team we're not used to, We're struggling for goals, but we can keep goals out at the other end. And I think the last goal from open play we conceded was against Man City at the Etihad.
That's crazy to think about that.
And that was, I think, over 400 minutes of football ago. And our goal difference at this stage, it's -10. At the same stage last season, I'm looking at the stats here, it was -21 in the last Premier League season. 15 matches.
What a difference.
Played. Yeah, and we were dead last in the league then with 9 points. And right now, we're 18th. And it's a marginal improvement. But I think the big thing here is that we become a well-drilled defensive unit who's actually struggling for any creativity in the attacking third. And remember, start of the season, we were conceding goals in the first 10 minutes almost regularly.
That's right.
For the past, couple of Premier League seasons, we had goal differences at the end of the season, like -50, -60. We were the laughing stocks of the league, shipping goals left and right, individual errors left and right at the back. The fact that we've sorted that out is a massive improvement. We are a team who can hang with, I think, the best in the division. We showed that with the Leicester-Liverpool matches and Southampton. This is a good side.
It's a very good side. It's not just a good side. It's a very good side.
The flip side of that is that's not enough at this stage of the season. Right now, we're in a relegation fight, and we're in the relegation zone. The teams around us are playing just as well, if not better, guys. And that's the big takeaway for me is that you see Brighton get a point from West Ham. We lost at the London Stadium. We see West Bromwich Albion going away to Anfield getting a point. Burnley, they lost to Leeds, but they're picking up wins, quite regularly past couple weeks. We can't depend on anyone else to be poor at this stage of the season. Even Sheffield United is playing better. They almost got a point against Everton, got a point against Brighton. We have to keep up our performances, and we have to get a creative player in January, a striker. That's my main thing, is because we have to applaud what Stuart Gray, Parker, and Matt Wells have done with the defense. The fact that we can now keep clean sheets at home is unbelievable.
It's fantastic, Max.
But the 0-0s aren't going to cut it. So I think, just to sum it up at the end, because I know I'm going on a bit here.
That's okay.
The 0-0 draw against Southampton is a great result, in my opinion. People have become pessimistic, but they're pessimistic about what happened against Brighton and Newcastle, which is very fair. We dropped points there. There's no doubt about that.
I think there's a different level you're talking about.
So draws against teams like Southampton, that will keep us up. But we have to turn the draws against Brighton, Newcastle, etc. into wins. So we should be happy after this performance, but realize against the teams around us, we have to win. But I'm not worried about a 0-0 draw against Southampton. I'm delighted with this.
Okay. And before I go to Claire, I'm going to go right back to you, because what you're talking about is something that I think is very key and very important. We didn't have the foundation 2 seasons ago defensively. They have that now. You can build upon that. Now, going forward, I completely agree with you. It's toothless. It's disjointed. And in the final third, it just isn't good enough. So that is the next part of their game that needs to connect to the defensive part. But if you don't have the defensive part, I think you go down regardless. So I think the strides have already been there. Now you have to take what you've built, this foundation, and build on it. Would you agree with me on that, Max? Because, again, I don't think this team is nearly as bad as they were 2 seasons ago because we have this foundation. And then I'll go to Claire.
Yeah, and that's it. I think it's much easier to have a solid defense with an underperforming attack than the other way around.
Exactly.
And that's as simple as that. I think you can buy more attacking players. It's easier to coach creativity, in my opinion, than it is to coach away individual errors. Because we saw, 2018-19 season, there's nothing we could do about.
We're not seeing the individual errors. I'm glad that you're bringing that up.
And that's much harder to deal with.
We're not seeing those anymore.
And yeah, as you said, every single survival foundation, it's a cliche, but it's don't ship goals. If you
they don't.
Keep it tight, kind of like the Burnley method, right? But again, we need that burst of creativity. And it's kind of amazing that we're having this conversation with our leading scorer for the past, 2.5 seasons, Alexander Mitrovic, on the bench and looking a shadow of his former self. That's the kind of crazy part. We never worried about goals in the sense of we always had a goal scorer. Always had that number 9. And we have him, but he doesn't fit the system, or he's not on form, or I don't think he's fully fit. So that's a big concern for me. Okay,
very good. Claire, over to you. Feel free to share your thoughts on what Max and myself just shared, and then give us your opening thoughts on the match against Southampton.
Yeah, I mean, I largely agree with Max, actually. And you're quite positive, Max, and I think rightly so. And
yes.
One thing that you find on social media is if we're shipping in goals left, right, and centre, no one's happy, obviously, because it's frankly embarrassing. And if we're not scoring, people are fuming with that as well, because you don't score. But I Max, I agree with you that you get a decent striker to bang a few in, and we're mid-table, in by a click of the finger. I mean, I think one of the things that is for me is a real standout, and no disrespect to Rodak, because I think he was great, but Areola between them posts for us, I think, I do firmly believe that if you have faith, confidence, trust in your keeper, you see a better midfield, you see a better defence. Because he is a lead that back four, and I just feel that there's just more sort of faith, there's more trust in the team, there's more sort of unity with each other. That there's none of this panicking, running around like headless chickens. Even a few games ago, there was those sort of like what the hell moments. You could see it on the players' faces. It was like what was that? What did you do that for? Sort of thing. Not so many games ago we were in that position, like you say, when we were letting in those embarrassing amounts of goals in the first 5 minutes. I really do think there's a lot of positivity. I will admit to falling asleep on the sofa watching some of was it the new oh God, what game was it? I'll have to look it up on my phone. You'll have to excuse me. I have the worst memory in the world. I'm really the worst person to be.
That's okay, Claire.
On your show. Let me just have a look on my phone. Was it the Newcastle game?
It could have been the Brighton match too.
It could have been. Maybe it was both. And I think maybe it's a bit of Christmas tiredness. You're winding down for Christmas, and far too much food and drinks being there and all of the rest of it. But there was certainly 5 minutes in, it was either the Brighton or the Newcastle match where I fell asleep for 5 minutes. And, it's not old age. It's not.
No.
But, there are moments where you just sort of nod off, because it can get a little bit boring watching us, I'd say sometimes. We're solid on the defence, and that is lovely to see, because quite frankly it has been embarrassing, when you're leaking in so many and early doors as well. But I think we're not setting the world alight with 2-3 nils or anything, but I can really see that coming, and I really can see us being a team that people are going to start looking at and thinking, I don't want to play them this weekend.
Oh, I think that's already on the horizon.
Yeah.
And if I'm Spurs, I'm actually thinking about that. I'm thinking, you know what? This is not going to be a team that we played 2 seasons ago. It's not the same team. And I've already been telling people that, and I actually did a video for Last Word on Spurs. That's one of the things I said. I said, if you were expecting the team from 2 seasons ago, you're not going to see that team. You are not going to see that team. We're different. And, and I think that teams that are thinking that this is going to be an easy 3 points, they're going to be sadly mistaken. And I think that's a lot of credit to Parker, the players, Claire, and I agree with you. I think we're headed in the right direction. And yes, I think we need reinforcements, but I still believe that once this team gels, that there will be some more goals. But it is hard to watch at times. It is. I'm not gonna deny that, and I'm just gonna share this because I think it was the Brighton match. And here's a comment: Brighton was dire, and I have a feeling it was either, like you said, either that or the Newcastle. I have a feeling it might have been the Brighton match because the Brighton match at times was not that great. But no, good stuff from you, Claire. And Max, I want to go back to you because I got this interesting comment because you were starting to talk about what we need to do. So here's an interesting question from Brian Lake. I'm going to put you on the spot. Who would you sign, Max, if you were Tony? Here we go. You're Tony Khan.
Yeah, I think obviously.
What would you do?
I'll be looking toward the championship. I think for strikers.
Really?
I think that's a probably good idea to do in January when you don't have to break the bank, hopefully, and you can get someone who might fit our system in the Premier League. I think Josh King is one that's always thrown about. That's one I'd be in favor of. You look at the top goal scorers in the championship right now. It's Adam Armstrong from Blackburn. I'd be happy with Tony from Brentford. He'd be quite good.
Yep.
But again, I don't know if they're available. I don't know if they'd sell. But
that's the whole thing.
Listen, I don't envy Tony Khan's job at all. And I actually want to give him a lot of credit because people have remarked, as I have in the past, Adarabioyo, Anderson, Areola, Robinson, Aina, right? The entire back four is new, and a bunch of them are loans. And then I think Adarabioyo and Robinson are both under £2 million permanent signings. Unbelievable, Unbelievable signings. Again, they came 4 matches too late for most of them and gave us that kind of everyone else had started us, and that's why we're in this position. But
yes,
yeah, of course, we need a new striker. Dwight Gale is one that's been thrown about. Don't know if he's available.
Let's just throw him out there for the 1,000th time.
He got a goal.
Claire knows I'm right. How many times have we been linked, Claire, to Dwight Gale?
It feels like for about 35 years we've been linked with him.
I agree, Claire. I totally agree. But I understand why Max is bringing that up. But the funny thing about it is that I think that ship has sailed, to be honest with you. And I don't think Newcastle are going to sell him to us. I don't see that happening, but I see where you're going. I definitely see where you're going. And I wouldn't be against a championship striker, but I would want something different. And Claire, it's funny. Again, we are going to talk about the match, but since someone brought this up, when you look at Fulham and you look at what we need moving forward, we have Mitro, right? We have a goal scorer, but I think what we need is something different than Mitro. Someone that actually has a little pace that maybe can run onto the ball a little bit and run the channels, maybe change things up a little bit. So what are your thoughts about that? What would you, I hate to put you in the shoes of Tony, but I'm going to put you in the shoes of Tony. What would you do?
I don't know, but I was kind of dreading the whole sort of striker Mitro thing coming up today because I'm not so keen on Mitro, and I was dreading it coming up because I was like, oh no, I'm going to get hate mail now.
No, you're not going to get hate mail.
I'm not a fan. I'm really not. When he was driving the goals in left, right, and centre, of course I was a fan. But for me, I don't know. There's just something not clicking there for me right now with him. Not just, obviously it can't be helped when he's only coming on in the 83rd, 85th minute or what have you. Can't really warm up to a game in those short spells. But I don't know what it is. I said it at the end of last season. I just pick up a vibe from Mitro, and I just don't know what it is. There seems to be a disconnect for me, and I think I've said it before on here maybe, but I'd love for Mitro to come good and him start and him score, but I do think we need someone who can, as an out and out striker, who can do a bit more running around than Mitro does. I really do believe that. But as far as names and players go, I wouldn't have the first clue who I think would be suitable for our setup. I'll be honest with you. I just don't know, and I'm not even going to pretend I do.
Claire, that's okay. But Max, going back to, and again, I'm glad that we're talking about. I'm glad that Claire is being honest. He's not a fair fan of Mitro, and I want Mitro to stay at Fulham. I just think they need an alternative, meaning that there are a couple different styles that Fulham are playing right now, and when they play this style like they've been played in the last match, I think they need someone with a little bit more pace, but they also need a better version of Cavallero. Okay, we'll put it to you that way. Cavallero can't finish. They need a finisher. They need someone that can actually finish. Would you agree with that? Because I wouldn't want a prototypical Mitro type of, basically a hold-up striker. Again, that's not what they need. They need someone, I think, that, like I said, has a little pace and that can play this counterattacking style. Someone like I hate to use this person, someone like a Jamie Vardy. You're not going to get Jamie Vardy, but do you understand where I'm going on that?
Yeah, for sure. I think there might be a reason that Mitrovic never actually made the move away from us when perhaps he could have. I think it's not the Premier League style anymore to have players like him, unfortunately. You need someone who can press, who can be running 90 minutes, who's a bit more mobile, who can make runs in behind. And yeah, I see what Claire's saying about Mitrovic. I love him because I think he single-handedly got us promoted almost, 2 seasons in a row, in my opinion.
Yep.
So, and he's someone who's loyal. I think he definitely could have left at times.
Absolutely.
But chose to stay, and not many players, stay with us after allegations and then kind of work our way up. So that's laudable. And I think he's always put in a shift for us. I think there's something wrong now. I don't think he's fit, in my opinion. I was having this conversation on Twitter yesterday.
Yep.
I said, he's just not match fit. He can't start. And then the person replied, I think it was actually Tony. He said, not Tony Khan, Tony Gold. He said, you're not going to get match fit playing 10 minutes off the bench. And I was like, I agree, but
he's 100% right.
Yeah.
Tony's 100% right.
In
Tony Gold,
Newcastle
by the way.
match, Mitrovic was poor, wasn't himself. And I think Mitrovic, if he's playing like we know he can play, which is he can get in the end of crosses, he can get involved in the build-up play, he can draw defenders to him and give space to other players. That Mitrovic would be fantastic. I still think he has a role to play.
I think he does too.
But this Mitrovic, who's slow and uninterested, and honestly, the biggest critique I have is he's not even getting in the box with regularity.
Yep.
That's not the Mitrovic we need. And that's why I agree we need a striker, definitely someone a bit more pacey.
Okay.
A lot of people have opinions, who's realistic. That's one thing we don't really know. And it's January. So January is always going to be a tough month. I wish we could get Ryan Babel of 2 years ago back. Someone said that. I couldn't agree more. He was a signing I was delighted with at the time. People kind of laughed at it. I knew he'd come good for us.
Well, we have a comment from Ralph Leach. Ryan Babel back.
Why not? Well, he loves the club. He's always commenting on Instagram. Every single post he's saying, call him the lads. He's putting in a very big public show for it. So get him in.
Okay, very good, guys. Let's move on and let's get into the match now. Okay, so let's actually talk about before the match. And Claire, I'll go to you first. Thoughts on when you saw the starting 11 about an hour before the match? Were you happy with how Fulham were set up against Southampton?
Yeah, I was. I mean, I haven't really got much to add to that, Ross. I think, it was a strong team. I was more than happy with that start up, to be honest with you. I think Scott still he's doing a little bit of tinkering here and there. There are, I suppose, you could look at certain opportunities that were maybe missed. There was that Cavallero opportunity.
Yep.
You think, another player could have probably scored that. So, I think there are questions about who should start up front, who should start as the more attacking players.
Right.
But generally, more than happy. Like, we said earlier, we're quite a solid team at the moment.
That's right.
And I think that we should be delighted with that as Fulham fans.
No, I totally agree, Claire, because when you look at the starting 11, it's not flashy, except if you want to say Ademola Lookman is a little bit flashy. But you know what? It's solid. It's solid. Even Cavallero, with all of his faults and not really being a finisher, he's still solid. It's a team. When I saw the starting 11, when you look at it, it's a team. Okay. It might not be, it's not a top 10 team, a mid-table team, but it's a team. And that to me it goes back to the foundation. Max, what were your thoughts when you saw the starting 11?
Yeah, I think obviously no Lamina, so Reed came in. I
Yep.
thought he did an all right job. I still think we missed Lamina a bit, but wasn't too bad of a deputy. And then there was a lot of conversations going on in my group chats about Loftus-Cheek starting ahead of Kearney.
Yes.
I actually tried to play a bit of the devil's advocate, and I said, hey, I don't have a problem with Loftus-Cheek as much. Obviously he's been a disappointment in many senses. But I was saying, listen, back in the Liverpool match, which was our best performance, I thought he was very good. I think he was physical in midfield, won the ball back, played a couple through balls to Cavallera. So I said, give him a chance. I didn't think he did enough for me against Southampton. I would like to see Kearney in the next couple of matches, because I know we've talked about this in the past couple of weeks, but you think, what did Kearney do to deserve being dropped per se? Because he had that West Brom match, which I thought he was man of the match and his best performance this season. I think he played all right in other matches this season as well. Not as good, but he hasn't really gotten us. He started against Newcastle, wasn't amazing, but I still think we need more creativity. And the team that's struggling for goals, you shouldn't be dropping your club captain, creative midfielder, match in, match out. That to me is worrying. So I want to see more Kearney. Apart from that, the Micho on the bench was the other big thing. But as you said, Ross, it's a team, and it's essentially the same team that had that good result against Liverpool and Leicester. And when you get a team, you stick with it. That's one of the lessons we learned. You can't chop and change every match. So
no, and it's funny because the team, like you said, if you talk about maybe a few changes from each match into, say, each style that Parker wants to play. And first of all, I thought Mario Lamina was not just a little loss. I thought he was a huge loss. I thought you could see the difference. Nothing against Harrison Reed. I just don't think he got the job done. I think we really missed Mario Lamina. And I think he's more creative than some might give him credit for, Max. So I think that was actually, believe it or not, I think that was a glaring loss. And again, that was out of no one's control. But when you look at it, and I looked at the lineup, yes, I was fine with it. I was fine with it. But the thing about Kearney, Max, and Claire, and I'm curious your view on this too. I think part of it, I truly believe this is tactical, Max. He wants to play a certain way against the Liverpools and the Southamptons, and he wants pacey players. Kearney doesn't fit that bill. And I think that's why he keeps going with Ruben Loftus-Cheek. I could be wrong, but I truly believe it's purely tactical. And then you'll see him against Newcastle because we're more on the front foot. We're more creative. I think it's a style and a tactical issue, Max, why we're not seeing enough of Kearney.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's totally good analysis. It's tactical. Parker wants that quicker style of play that he thinks Loftus-Cheek can offer.
He just doesn't fit that.
But again, I think Loftus-Cheek in attacking positions does not do enough for me. And everyone saw.
I'm not going to disagree with that either.
Yeah, no. So I'm saying I can see the rationale, but Parker should be smart enough to realize that Loftus-Cheek does not deserve a starting place in this team as of now. He's not done enough. Now, coming off the bench as an impact sub, Loftus-Cheek can be an impact sub much better than Kearney can, right?
Yes, absolutely. He's already shown it. He's already demonstrated it.
And I think Kearney can play that quicker, more forward-thinking style of play. He has it in him. We haven't seen it as much as we wanted to. But I think the team needs to honestly be built around Kearney in many ways, in the sense that he's your captain, and when he's playing well, the team's playing well. We've known this for seasons now.
Well, we've said that for
he's inconsistent, and we know that. That's another thing. But I think Parker needs to place more faith in him, because so much of what we're complaining about, which is a lack of attacking opportunities, no goals, Kearney can be a big, reason to change that, I think.
I agree with that, Max, but I go back to how Parker is trying to play against the opponent. And I think he's looking at it in certain ways. I think he's saying to himself, okay, against Newcastle, I can play Kearney. But then there are situations, and there was one major situation where you needed Kearney to be quicker, and he wasn't quick enough to get to the ball. Again, there was one situation where he was open, and he just could not get there quick enough. And I think that, unfortunately, in the way that Parker wants to play, even though it's conservative in many ways, he does want them to be brave at times. And at times, I like Kearney. I think against certain opponents, I think he could be fantastic. But I think against other opponents, I can see why Parker is doing what he's doing. But again, going back to Ruben Loftus-Cheek, I agree with the people really getting after him, because he's not living up to what we thought he would be, Max. Claire, he's not the player that we had hoped to have seen coming from Chelsea. And
Mm.
I think that might also be part of the problem, is that our expectations were high. And I'll use this as an example, Max, from another sport. He's basically a top 10 draft pick. Think of it that way. And he's not living up to that standard. He's not
Yeah.
bad, but he's not living up to that
Well,
standard.
I think it's even worse than that because, a
Okay.
draft pick is someone unproven. This guy's played in the World Cup. This guy's played for Palace in a
That's a good
survival
point.
campaign, done super. This is someone who's played at Chelsea, one of the best teams in England. He shouldn't be doing this for us.
Yep.
I mean, I don't want to get too deep into psychoanalysis, but this is kind of a lone player issue you sometimes have. I don't
Yep.
think he's as motivated as our players might be. I don't know, he's a disappointment so far, and I think Kearney needs to be in that position, in that center midfield position, a bit more.
Okay, very good. All right. Coming up, I'm going to talk to the guys about the first half and the second half, and we'll end with man of the match. Okay, guys, let's now get into the match a little bit. And Max, I'll go to you, talk about some key moments in the first half. And let's just start with the beginning of the match. Fulham actually had a decent opportunity, but unfortunately, Ademola Lookman's shot was blocked. But then you have this moment, Max, and let's talk about this in the first half, because I really want to talk about how toothless Fulham can be, because there were opportunities here.
Mm-hmm.
The 25th minute, again, the missed kick by Anguissa. And it was actually a great ball from Lookman and Ruben Loftus-Cheek. This was actually a good opportunity. Let's talk about this, because I think this is what we've been talking about, really, that it's just not all coming together.
Yeah, that's actually, I think, the best thing Loftus-Cheek did all match was that really nice ball from the right wing. Went across everybody, but Lookman did well to salvage it, put the cut back to Anguissa. And I think Anguissa, we haven't talked about him yet. I think he was man of the match for me. He was excellent all over the pitch. He's really just impressed me so much this season.
Mm.
Terrible miss of the match. And when you're in that position as a midfielder, I know he's a holding midfielder, but you have to have your shooting boots on. And just to completely whiff it, it was a really big let off, because we felt that we were in the ascendancy of that top part of the match. And I think, people talk about the attack being toothless, et cetera. Totally true. But I don't think it was a case that we were playing negative, right? When you see a 0-0.
No, I don't think we were playing negative.
Yeah, no, for sure. But I think when people see a 0-0 at home, they see not as many shots on target as we would have liked. They think, oh, Fulham just kind of sat back. But we were very forward thinking that first 20
Absolutely,
minutes,
we were.
Playing
I
well.
really agree, Max.
But I think they're the two issues, right? We don't really have a focal point in the middle, like a Mitrovic or Mitrovic-like player. So a lot of instances, the ball gets wide, and there's no one really to cross to, or you put it across and it gets cleared easily. And then you have the situations where there's a kind of cut back and you play to your midfielders making deep runs, and they don't really have the finishing skills you'd like of them. So it kind of goes across the attack, I think, is the issue. But I'm glad we're talking about that first period of the first half, because we were the better side.
We were the better side at that point, Max.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, got to take your chances. Cliche, but when you're on top in the Premier League, you can't let those periods go by without scoring.
Right. And that's why I'm glad that we're talking about this opportunity, the Anguissa's missed kick, because I think this was, again, when you're in the ascendancy, you need to be scoring here, and you need to at least get that shot on target. And it was a whiff, and that to me was a disappointment. All right, Claire, I'm going to go right back to you, because actually I think this is something that you're going to like to talk about, okay? Let's talk about the James Ward-Prowse free kick. And we have to give Areola credit here, because when you watch it back, because at first glance, I thought that he didn't do anything on this. He actually got some fingertips on this and probably made the difference. So let's talk about this, because, again, I was scared throughout the match whenever they would get a free kick, a corner, anything. I was afraid, because I know of James Ward-Prowse is deadly. So I got proven right here, because this was inches from being a goal. But again, our goalkeeper stepped up big. So your thoughts on what was going through your mind when you were watching him take this, and then what happened after that? Because again, the ball drops right in front of a Southampton player, and I think it was Adams, right?
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
And it's funny, because I've heard about how wonderful the spin is on James Ward-Prowse's free kicks. I think it actually backfired on him here, because I think the spin spun away from Adams there. But what are your thoughts here? What was going through your mind watching this?
Yeah, well, I mean, I must admit, I will say quite honestly again, I've had the most horrendous few months with work. So my knowledge of Premiership footballers outside of the Fulham FC team has been quite limited just because I have had no time. I was honestly working 18, 20-hour days up until a few weeks ago. So honestly, I haven't tended to do the homework on my, players, opposition, what have you. But this Prowse chap, I've heard about these deadly free kicks and all the rest of it. As soon as I saw that, I thought, well, that's a goal straight away. And Max, you said about Anguissa being your man of the match. My man of the match is our man between the sticks, not just for that save, but just because I think he's solid. And I think that's what gives you confidence is when you
That's a great point. Yes,
you see that and you think, flipping heck, that would have been you would have respected that as a goal. You would have thought our keeper didn't really have a chance with that. If it had gone in, the fact that he was able to get to that, and it saved us quite a few times in the game, I thought, not just on that occasion, but there were a few times. But I honestly thought that there were times when I thought maybe Southampton deserved to win the game, going through the motions of the second half. But actually, on reflection, I think the score was fair.
I think the score was fair. I agree.
Yeah,
with you.
I think we did enough to get that point.
Yeah.
And I don't think I don't think that we go into the next game with any fear at all. With what we saw in the game just gone, I don't think we have anything to fear against any team at the moment.
And that's what's crazy, Claire. And that again is the takeaway for me. The talking point is Fulham shouldn't fear anyone.
Yeah,
they should not fear anyone at this point, and that's crazy to say. They really shouldn't fear anyone because they can play with anyone. They keep showing it over and over again. But let's talk about this a little bit more because I'm glad that we're talking about Areola because this goes back to the foundation, Claire, and talking about having a goalkeeper like this. It feeds off of everyone else because once you know you have someone at that level, well, then your back four or in this case, back five is going to have a little bit more belief because they know that the guy behind them is going to do his job. Then they just can do their job. So I think part of what's been going on defensively is it starts with Areola and then you can add obviously Anderson, Adebayo, and I'll put Ana in there as well. But I think it's all working in unison, but I think it all begins with Areola. Do you agree with me?
I agree. I do agree. And I think Areola, he's taken on quite a leadership role, I think.
Yes.
I really do. I think he's quite a leader. He's not afraid to conduct. Anderson, I think, again, is quite a leader. And to me, Anderson in particular for quite a few games now has shown more leadership to me than Kearney has. When Kearney's been captain. And I like to see that leadership. Maybe it's because I'm a bossy man myself and I like to think of myself as a bit of a leader. But I like to see that leadership. I like to see.
No, you can tell. You can see that.
I like to see that. I like to see people go, on that pitch.
I'm going to say it. I'm going to say this. The new Breda. I'm going to say it. He's Breda Hangelin. I'm going to say it.
Yeah.
He's our Breda Hangelin now.
Yeah.
He's that good.
Yeah. I like that. It's just positive. It's good to see that passion, but it's good to see people with a level head that aren't afraid to. I don't know. And again, people are probably going to shoot me. No. But with Kearney, I feel like sometimes with Kearney, he wants to be everyone's friend and doesn't want to shout and scream a bit. Whereas I'm finding now with Anderson and Areola, they're quite happy to shout and scream a
Well,
bit
they're
and tell
vocal
people.
leaders. There are different
Yeah,
types of leaders. They're more
yeah,
vocal, and I gravitate towards the more vocal leaders. That's
yeah,
how I'm wired. So I
yeah.
understand. I understand why you're going on that, Claire, because it sounds like you're similar too. And it's not that Kearney isn't a leader. It's just that he's just a different type of leader. But I understand why
Mm,
you're feeling the way that you're feeling. But it's the confidence. The confidence
mm,
starts at the back, and it goes to the defense, and then it can go further up front. But again, it goes back to the foundation. Max, I want to go to you because
yeah,
do you agree with Claire
absolutely.
and me that really when you talk about the confidence in Fulham and the way Fulham are building this foundation, it actually begins with Areola.
100%. He's a player. He's played for PSG. He was on loan at Real Madrid. It's a great pedigree. And I
Mm,
know he didn't play much Real Madrid, but I mean, he played, I think, a couple seasons for PSG, and when they won the league or in the Champions League, he's like a better version of Sergio Rico in that
Yeah,
regard. And I think Claire's right. When you have confidence in your keeper, the whole team feels it.
exactly. Exactly. And again, say what you want about the James Ward-Prowse free kick. It was a wonderful free kick. He did get fingertips on it, but it shows you it actually just another example of how great he's been the entire season.
mm,
That's all. It's just an
mm,
example.
100%.
It's an example of what he has done and the confidence that he has in his own abilities to do that. But like I said, he leads from the back, and that actually spreads throughout the team. It starts with him, and I'm convinced of that now. All
mm.
right, guys, good stuff. All right, so when we get to the half, Claire, what were your thoughts at halftime?
Um, I think my thoughts at half time were mostly, if we can play like this for another 45 minutes, I think we can get something. And also, I'm going to crack me open a nice cold cider. They were my thoughts.
Oh, Claire, I love you, Claire. You're awesome. I love you, Claire. Max, what was going through your mind at halftime?
Well, are we not going to talk about the penalty call?
Oh, sorry.
I think we were completely robbed. I think a Southampton player elbowed the ball in the area.
Okay, you're right.
moved
You're
their
right,
hand
Max.
toward the
You're right.
ball.
I
No,
actually I
Russ,
pulled the Goldman. I
I'm
didn't
not mad
do
at
that.
you. I'm mad at the ref. Don't worry. I'm not mad at you. I'm mad at the referee. People are making jokes on Twitter. It's like, what's the handball rule? If it's a handball, if a Fulham player handles it, it's a handball. If it's against
Well, it
Fulham,
needs to be
fine.
consistent. It's
Yeah,
not
it's a
consistent.
joke.
That's all.
I think the issue with that one is the center back or the defender. I don't know who it is for Southampton. They move it towards the ball, and I don't think it's directly on their side. I think that should be a penalty, and it wasn't checked for very long. And I don't blame you for missing it because it went by just like this. There was no long check. The referee seemed to make up his mind. That was really disappointing, in my opinion, especially considering the Kamara decision, which I'm always frustrated about, because if that's given, then I think we should have gotten the penalty against Southampton. It's not, as you mentioned, consistency is key. Apply the rule the same to everyone.
Well, we will talk about the argument that Aina was on the similar level. It could have gone that way too. In fact, I've heard some announcers say that was closer than ours, but who knows? Like you said, the handball rule is crazy. It's all over the place. There's no consistency with it, Max. I think that's your point. Okay, let's talk about the second half. Let's analyze the second half, and I'll go back to you, Max, because I think this really talks about what we've been talking about throughout the show. It's the foundation defensively, but it's the final third is just a mess. So let's talk about in the 55th minute, Robinson's cross goes right to Cav. Max, he has to score here. This is horrific. This isn't bad. This is horrific. Let's talk about the miss from Cavallero here.
Yeah, I mean, you said it best. You got to score that. No one's within 10 yards of him in that area.
He was by himself.
Let's give Robinson credit, though. That was really great work on the left wing. And we haven't talked about him as much today, but he's a tireless worker, and he's developing to a player I think we're all very proud of. Yes. I think he'll start for the U.S. national team for years to come, and there's no reason he can't be a Fulham, fan favorite.
Oh, I totally agree.
His effort is unbelievable, and if he can deliver that kind of service week in, week out, we're going to be very lucky, because my one criticism of him is in the final third.
He needs to be more consistent with it.
He's not as consistent. He's pretty wayward. But the 1-2, the run up the left wing, almost the entire pitch, and that ball first time. You saw Cavalier had that time. Just superb. But the thing about Cavallera is I almost wasn't angry because it's Cavallera. I'm expecting that. He's not someone who scores from open play. He's not someone who scores very much at all. And he just never looked like scoring. The header, he just totally mistimed it. Wasn't even on target. Yep. That's a situation where I could see Mitrovic putting that in easily. And I could see Mitrovic being in that area because, we're talking all we want about we need a striker who can run in behind. We need a more pacey striker. But there's no reason Mitrovic cannot be in that position in the center of the box and head home from a cross. That's something which we were playing.
That's a valid point.
Mitrovic's strengths. And listen, if Mitro starts and he scores that, it's a very different story we're having here. So there's one situation you can, the pro Mitro case would be that he can get in that position. He'll score that. We're 1-0 up. We don't give up that lead.
Okay. All right. Well, let's move on and let's talk about some other moments in the second half. You have in the 66th minute, Reed has a shot that's easily saved. Then you have the nice save. Again, we're talking about Areola. That's Claire's man of the match. He makes another save off of Shane Long. That was actually a nice fingertip save. It was fairly comfortable on that, but that was another key save. But Claire, I want to go back to you because again, let's talk about. Max just talked about how Fulham should have had a penalty. Well, there was a situation similar to that with Aina, and Aina, it hits his arm, and they actually stopped to take a look at it. And I was scared here because I really thought that VAR was going to screw us here. I hate to say that because I thought that they're going to VAR. It's definitely going to go against us here, but it didn't go against us. What was going through your mind when you were seeing them stop play and go to VAR for the situation with Aina with the ball hitting his arm or his body?
Yeah, I mean, I thought straight away it's going to be a pen. I just felt like it was. I honestly, without being political, I feel like the whole VAR thing makes as much sense as Boris Johnson.
Okay.
Tier 1 with you. I really do. 1 minute something's allowed, the next minute it's not, and then it is, and if someone else does it, it is, and then if someone else does it, it's not. And to me, again, Russ, you and I were talking just before we went live about how exhausting 2020 has been.
Yes.
And I feel the same with VAR. It's exhausting, and I'd rather, I know this sounds like a cop-out, but I'd rather not talk about it because I don't know whether it makes me angry, frustrated, or just plain confused, to be honest with you.
Okay. Well, no, listen, I understand that, Claire. And what's interesting about it, I understand that you are confused by it, but I'm going to share this with you, and I shared this on Full Time as well. Here's the flip side of this. This is because I am someone that believes that eventually they're going to get this right. And I believe that VAR was meant for the two situations that helped Fulham here. 2 goals were disallowed because of VAR. So we can talk about what's been wrong with VAR. This, to me, is what was intended for bringing in VAR. Were situations like this because, as Emil and I were talking about, Claire, if we're in the championship, we lose this match because both those goals count. So I understand your frustration. This is the glimmer of hope that I'm giving you, is that they eventually fix all of the issues. But this is why I'm for VAR, because of situations that actually help Fulham, because it was the right calls. Both were offside. Even if it's a little offside, they were offside. And again, they got it. They got the calls wrong. The ref and the officials the linesman got the calls wrong. So I would rather them get it right, and it actually worked to Fulham's benefit here.
Yeah, I mean, when they get it right, it's fair enough. It's just the lack of consistency, isn't
I agree with that.
Yeah. That's the problem. And in 5 years' time, we're sitting here saying, "Oh, VAR is perfect now." Fair enough, but at the moment, it's just it's just not working as it should be. And I must say I can't remember which offside it was, but the one where the Southampton player, I mean, it must have been his toenail offside. I felt like that was harsh. I really, not that I wanted them to score, I didn't want that goal to hold, but I felt like it was harsh. And I know if the shoe was on the other foot and that was our toenail offside, I'd be flipping fuming. I really would.
Okay. Well, fair enough, Claire. Fair enough. And I think that they need to make adjustments to VAR because, again, it does get so fine. I thought this was enough, but I understand what you're saying, that it can seem like a toenail. Well, I agree with that. Okay. Let's move on. Max, back over to you. And let's talk about Mitro coming on, because this is a criticism that Emilio and I had, that he came on too late, Max. How could he affect the game so late here? And, again, we could talk about that. Maybe he's not fit, but you don't give him enough time to affect the game. And he actually did have a shot late on in the game. What are your thoughts about, again, we're talking about decision-making. Emil and I were talking about this. If we're going to praise Parker for some good decision-making, I know he's remote, he's still involved in these decisions. Why did he wait so long to bring him on?
Yeah, I think there must have been like a 20-minute delay in his service on the FaceTime call because Mitrovic came in so late. That's the only explanation I have there.
That's very funny,
yeah.
Max.
No, you're right. That's the big criticism you can have in this match, is that it was there to be won. It was 0-0.
It was there.
20 minutes to go. You put in a striker. It's 60, and at the hour mark, you make the sub. The other thing is Kamara. Let's use Kamara more. He deputized Mitrovic.
I don't know.
Hold up, Russ. Let's hear this out. Okay, hear me out. I think he's a better finisher than Cavalier is, right? Cavalier is 1 goal in 30 matches.
Okay.
I know Kamara has a better rate than that in his last 30 matches, undoubtedly. And we've seen Kamara play in a central striker position in the championship last season. I remember the goals against QPR.
Yep.
He scored the double. And he's also scored in the Premier League for us on multiple occasions when Cavaliers, only scored 1 goal. And Kamara, I think, offers a better threat running behind. I think he's a more physical player. He's quicker. Not saying he starts, but I'm saying he's an impact sub. And maybe put him and Mitrovic both on. And I think a really good combination we had last season in the championship was Kamara's crosses, actually. Were some of the best in the team. So I know Kamara gets a really short stick sometimes. People don't love him, but he divides opinion. I think he's worth an option off the bench, certainly more so than Cabano, maybe. So I would have.
I disagree. I would have gone with Cabano. And Cabano's not a Premier League player, but if you're asking me between the two, I trust Cabano more than I trust.
Yeah, I mean, if we get a free kick, sure, you put him on. Maybe you can do a quick sub him off after the set piece. Almost like a hockey substitution, right? Come on.
Okay. All right. Very interesting stuff. Okay, so like we were talking about, Cabano does come on for Lookman, and that's very late. And then you have the shot from Mitro that just goes wide. And then you have what happened at the very end, guys, where Anguissa was trying to make something happen. And this is unfortunate, Claire, and we'll do this to end our discussion about talking about the match. But at the very end, Fulham actually had an opportunity. And I can't blame Anon here, but his shot gets blocked at the very end. It comes right to him. And, this was frustrating because I'm thinking we can get all 3 points. What was going through your mind when you watched this situation? At the very end, you have Anguissa just keeps running and the ball drops to Anon, and unfortunately it got blocked.
I think this is where the jaded Fulham supporter comes to mind, and I just really didn't think that anything was going to happen with it. To be honest with you, I'm so awful, aren't I?
Okay.
I hate to say it, but honestly, you know what? I mean, I'm usually really positive, but
You are.
It just felt like it wasn't going to be our day to set the world alight. That's what it felt like to me. It just felt like one of those games. It was more of a vibe than anything based on skill. It was more just, you just felt like it was going to be a 0-0. I think you just felt like we weren't going to get that little piece of magic at the end. It would have been beautiful if we did, but Yeah. But, just going back to what Max said, as much as I am a bit down on Mitro at the moment, and I hate to say it because I want him to prove me wrong. I really do.
Right.
But it was funny, Max, what you were saying, on that hour mark, Mitro should have been on, because I clearly remember saying to my daughter, Fliss, it was the 65th minute. And I remember looking at Fliss and saying, we need Mitro on, and I think, had he come on in the 65th minute, I do think that game would have changed. And I don't think that we would have been talking about Aina's blocked shot in the 91st minute or whatever it was. We would have been probably talking about Mitro's 1, maybe 2 goals. Yeah.
Well, that's a good point there, Claire. And Max, I want to get your thoughts on this, because when you look at this, and again, this is something that Amelia and I talked about. I'm curious your view on this. The approach. Scott Parker, at times, is conservative. At times, he's reactive. Here was an opportunity to be proactive, and I don't think he was proactive here. I thought he just decided to just stay with what was going on and see it out instead of trying to make something happen. And again, this is going to be a criticism of Parker. I needed him to be brave here. I needed him to try to change the game. Why didn't he try to change the game, Max? And I think he's done, honestly, he's proven me wrong. Scott Parker's proven me wrong, okay? He's completely proven me wrong. But here's an opportunity to be proactive and change the game. And there's an argument to stay with the players that you have, to believe in your players, but there's also an argument to go for the win. And instead, I hate to say it, we were playing not to lose. And I don't like that. I don't like to play not to lose. There's a time and place for that. This is not the time and place for that, Max. This is a time and place to go and effing win the match. And you need a player that can do that. And I think they still have that.
I don't know if I feel as strongly as you do in that sense. I think I was frustrated with the lack of substitutions until late on, but I don't view it as a negative thing. I think, frankly, he was happy with the team we had out there, and he wanted to stick with them.
That was his view of
and
it.
He was pleased with
right.
it. It wasn't as if we had to chase a match and it wasn't like it was going horribly wrong. I think we're still creating some opportunities. Yes, I would have liked to see Mitro on earlier, but I think a part of me also says that, is there any guarantee Mitro on earlier would have made a difference? I like to think it would, but again, we're not seeing the same Mitro we have in past months or years. I truly, honestly don't think he's fully fit, and hopefully that comes with time in the training pitch, but he just does not look up to the speed of the Premier League at this moment in time.
Okay.
And maybe part of that gamble
as well. Maybe that's a factor. I don't know.
And I did make the joke about, him not being there, of course, because of the coronavirus protocols, but I do think you cannot underestimate the fact that not having his presence on the touchline did make a difference.
Yep.
Even if, he's still in constant communication, sure. I still think having Parker on the touchline will motivate the players more than,
that's a good point.
Being passed on to Matt.
It's a good point that he's not there. And yes, listen, I'll be the first to admit that I've been critical of Parker because, again, he wasn't my choice, but I will also give him a huge amount of credit for building this team. He's built a team. He deserves all that credit, but I think it's also fair for me to criticize him when I don't agree with some of the decisions that he makes. And this is one of them. He didn't make a decision because he went with what you just said, Max. He probably liked the team that he had and he just stayed with it. Whereas I would like, again, maybe it's just personal preference. I'd like a manager to be more proactive. Savisa was more proactive. And again, maybe I'm still living in the past with Savisa. I don't know. But that's where I'm coming from. That's where I'm coming from on that. Okay, guys, to end the show. Oh, actually, I had someone comment about this, and I think it's fair that we talked about this a little bit. Before we go to man of the match, I want to get both your view on Ruben Loftus-Cheek. I think we talked about it a little bit. Max, your view on Ruben Loftus-Cheek. How does he fit?
I think he fits best as a player coming off the bench. I don't think he deserves to start for us. He's not shown enough in the final third, which is, I think, where we really need him. I think we're set in terms of holding midfielders. Lamina and Gisa, those are starters for me. I think Loftus-Cheek is someone who has the potential to play in attacking midfield role and contribute goals and assists. But, it just seemed every time he had the ball in attacking position yesterday, with the exception of that cross to Lookman, he didn't quite have enough composure. He might have been a bit too slow, not on the same wavelength as other players. So not a starter for me.
Okay. Claire, what are your thoughts on Ruben Loftus-Cheek? And we've talked about this before. Some players that come on loan, maybe they're just simply loan players. Do you think that he's bought into being at Fulham? And what's your view on him and his role with Fulham?
Yeah, I mean, I pretty much agree, Max, with everything you just said. I just don't find him very impactful. I think that's probably the fairest way of putting it. I think there's moments that he does bits and pieces on the pitch, but overall he's not terribly impactful. I think, you know, you'd what is he, 24, 25? You know, he's sort of learnt his trade now. He should be better for the age that he is, I would say.
I agree with that.
And I think, you know, if you didn't know the age of him, you'd probably think he was a younger player because he doesn't seem to commit as much.
Yep.
And you might think that he was sort of younger and still learning and maybe not as confident or what have you. I think I just don't find him very impactful. I think that's just the fairest way to say it. I could quite happily not have him in the Fulham team.
Okay. And there are other fans that feel that way, Claire.
Yeah,
and I think that's one of the reasons why this fan sent us this message, because he wanted us to talk about it. And because he's not the only one, and I see this all over the place. You know, even I saw Mike Gregg, our co-host, mention Ruben Loftus-Cheek. So again, it's a fair topic. I look at his ability, and I've seen him in the past, and think, well, we're going to get that player. We just haven't seen that player, and I think that's why everyone's disappointed. We just have not seen that player, and I hope that we do. But I understand the frustration when it comes to Ruben Loftus-Cheek, and that goes against, you know, again, I was going to end with talking about man of the match, and of course, then we just started talking about this. But I understand why fans want us to talk about Ruben Loftus-Cheek. But guys, let's end with man of the match. You guys have already said who your man of the match is, so we'll do this quickly. Max, why is Anguissa your man of the match?
The way he carries the ball forward is just an amazing attribute. You know, I was having a conversation with my family, and I said the comparisons to Dembele, I think, are pretty accurate. The way he wins the ball back, you know, Dembele was gliding across the pitch, everything looked effortless, but Anguissa, I think, just works so hard, and the power he has, I think, is the most impressive thing, because he can muscle off 2 or 3 players and then play a nice 1-2, switch the play, start that counterattack. He did that multiple times against Southampton. Just take it from essentially the edge of his own box in a place where I'm like, please don't lose the ball. And he holds onto the ball so well. He can just shrug players off. And he's impressed me, because I was someone who was not a fan of his 2 seasons ago. And he's completely won me over. First name on the team sheet, I think, for me in this Fulham team.
Okay, and I agree with that. Yeah. I think he's been Fulham's player of the season. All right, over to you, Claire. Why Areola? You picked Areola. I think I know why, but
well, I would just like to say Anguissa is probably my very close second man of the match. But Areola, for me, I just think he's consistent. He gives me great confidence and faith watching the team, and obviously he gives the team great faith and confidence. They can get on and do their stuff because they know Areola's doing his stuff. But I think, you know, that free kick save he made was quite fabulous.
Yep.
And he kept us in the game, I think, quite significantly three times, I would say. You know, that they were significant saves in the game. So yeah, he's my man at the moment.
Okay, very good. All right. Well, great show, guys. I really appreciate both of you doing this show. Claire, it's been a long time. Thank you so much for coming back on. I miss you. You know, it's funny, you and I message back and forth, but I don't get a chance to say this. I miss you, Claire. Please come back soon.
I will. Thanks for having me, guys. I really enjoyed it. Cheers.
Well, good. And Max, you're Max. You know, it's you know, basically, I just turn the show on and you do your thing. So I don't have to say anything else. I praise you enough.
You're too kind. You're too kind, Russ.
All right, great show. But guys, let's wrap this up. For my good friend Claire and my good friend Max, I'm Russ Coleman. Thank you as always for watching and listening to Cottage Talk.